We were only making a few $100s a week, and we scaled that up to 20 million pretty quickly.
That's Janeesa. Launching Uber across the globe to accidentally starting her own company, she's mastered the art of high-stakes growth.
It was a lot of money to turn down at the time. It was something like double my salary that I was making at Uber.
She knows exactly what it is like to push herself to the absolute breaking point.
I passed out at a client meeting once. I had been working 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day for a very long time.
On this episode, you'll learn how Janeesa finally learned to trust her intuition, to avoid costly mistakes as a leader, and to overcome the internal scarcities that once drove her to burnout. Tell me, what's been your perception around burnout, grinding or hustling, and has it changed?
Yeah, it definitely has. I would say I could have worked 50% as hard and still have the same results.
I wanted to ask you about the beginning of your professional/business background.
I started after college working at startups.com doing marketing. And from there, I actually started a business that was not successful. It was a marketing agency. I didn't know what I was doing. I was 21 years old. And then from there, I had another couple of jobs, and then I went to Uber. And I was a launcher for Uber. I launched rides in Ohio, Kentucky, parts of Brazil, and then I launched Uber Eats across the Midwest. Then I moved into UberWorks, and I became the head of expansion for UberWorks, which was a line of business where we were trying to become the platform for work. You could press a button and get a line chef or a line cook.
I remember you were launching Uber in specifically cities, and then you were on the team or head of the team doing all of Brazil.
So what happened was I was launching Uber in different cities like Louisville, Lexington, Bowling Green. They had this program called the Nomad program where they would send people from the States to cities or countries around the world. And we would have very specific projects that we were sent there to do. But we would also help teach them how we did business in the United States so that Uber had very uniform operations, the entire world. They sent me to Brazil, and I was in Brasilia. I helped to automate a bunch of things on the marketing side. I helped to streamline the communications approval process. And then I was launching in Goiânia, which next to Brasilia.
So you went from launching Uber, and then you went into launching Uber Eats.
When I came back to the States from Brazil.
I'm seeing your Uber history of 3 different things, like launching Uber in different cities, different countries, then launching Uber Eats, then going to UberX.
UberWorks. Yeah.
UberWorks. Okay. And then I guess of those 3, what was your favorite? What was your least favorite?
I would say UberWorks was the most fun because when I joined, it was me, the guy who started it, and an engineer. We were only making a few $100s a week and scaled that up to 20 million pretty quickly in a year and a half, something like that, 2 years. And it was still growing when it got shut down in 2020.
Gotcha. Through your Uber journey, what was your biggest breaking point? Because you told me about some pretty stressful situations.
I passed out at a client meeting once. I started to feel dizzy. I had been working 7 days a week, probably 12 to 15 hours a day for a very long time because we were super understaffed and we were trying to grow. I wasn't eating well. I was eating a lot of gas station food because it was quick and next to the office. And we went to go meet this client that was really important that we close. And I started feeling hot and dizzy. I was in heels. So I started to walk away and I passed out. I woke up and there were all these people around me.
But you were standing.
I was standing. I just slumped over.
But did you fall on concrete?
There was a column or something. And I think I fell against that.
Oh.
They brought me a chair and put me in the chair. And I was like, I just get sick sometimes. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah. I'm not a meth addict.
Yeah. I had to go to the emergency room and it was a whole thing.
Since then, what's been your perception around burnout, grinding or hustling, and has it changed?
Yeah. So it definitely has. I would say I could have worked 50% as hard in terms of ignoring my own needs and not taking care of myself and still have the same results. Now I really prioritize getting enough sleep. I eat pretty healthy. I cook. I work out. I try to walk 10,000 steps a day. So I've shifted a little bit.
What was the driver behind you wanting to go pedal to the metal versus now? Was there something that was just in your head, I need to get my boss's attention
I think I felt insecure. I felt like if I wasn't working as hard as I possibly could, improving myself that I was working to the bone, they would be like, "Oh, you're not a team player, or you're not trying hard, or if this fails, it's your fault." There was a lot of pressure, and most of that I put on myself.
Did anyone ever say like, Janeesa's not really a team player? Has anyone ever told you that?
No, no, I was getting, so they would rank us a couple of times a year for performance reviews against one another, and I was always, like, at the top end of the ranking, and I would always get, like, super multipliers on my bonuses. It was showing that I was doing good work, I was just putting a lot of pressure on myself that didn't need to be there.
Where do you feel that that was stemming from?
Probably, actually, I always felt a little bit awkward once I got to college because I grew up in Southeastern Ohio. I was homeschooled, so I had an accent that people made fun of. A little weird. I'm still a little weird, but now it's okay. I'm not a kid, not young anymore. I just constantly felt the need to prove myself.
Yeah, no, I get that. So tell me about the transition of Uber and everything you're doing now.
So in 2020, COVID happened and the Uber business on the rides side dropped off 90%. Uber Eats was at the same time going crazy because everyone was ordering delivery. And Uber's CEO made the decision to cut all of the lines of business that were not rides or eats, which were the two core lines of business. Uber Works was considered experimental at that time. They laid off everyone. I stayed on for a few more months after that to help package the business up and try to sell it to various interested parties. I meant to take a year off, but we accidentally started this growth agency called JJ Studio. I made a post on LinkedIn about, I'm done with Uber. I'm going to take some time off. I'm available for consulting. Julia, my former business partner, and I, we both Julia started getting a ton of requests for consulting that also required execution and would do well if we had a team. So we talked to each other and we just decided, hey, let's partner up, share these requests, and let's make an agency. And so we just kind of fell into that. We did that from 2020 until 2022. And then at the end of 2021, I was kind of getting bored with doing like Facebook ad campaigns. I wanted to do work that was more meaningful. Sma, who is someone who I had hired at Uber to Chicago, and he was like, hey, I have an idea. Let's start a business and let's help low income people through our business. And we didn't have anything planned out, but it was really intriguing. So I said, okay, let's do this. And so we decided to start working on that. I closed down JJ Studio and started the company that I'm at now called Kalihi.
Was that Kalihi, when you had the conversation with Sma, was that before you moved to Brazil?
It was at the end of 2021 when I met with Sma, and we moved to Brazil at the end of March 2022.
So you guys had the idea, then you're like, let's just do it in Brazil.
Exactly. Yeah. We had a whole spreadsheet of different countries that we could have gone to and all these different factors that would go into whether or not we should go to these countries and different weights and blah, blah, blah. And our advisor, Andre, who was the former CEO of UberWorks, he was like, stop doing all of this. Just pick somewhere. And he was like, where should you go? Like, where makes sense? And I was like, I worked in Brazil for a while and I know some people there. And I donate money to this organization, the Favela Fighters, VST. Yeah. We could probably find people to work with from there. He was like, okay, just go. And so we were like, okay. And we just bought tickets and went to Brazil.
Sometimes the execution of what was considered the wrong decision is better than the analysis paralysis.
Yeah. And I mean, looking back, if we had gone through the whole spreadsheet, we would have ended up in another country. Brazil has its own challenges. But now we're here and it's been 3.5 years and we made it work.
Yeah. Really, you guys could make it work in many non-perfect locations.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So throughout your journey working with Uber before that and now doing your own business, tell me a story that you listened to your intuition.
Sure. I actually have a bunch of examples written down. At Uber, I'll tell you a story. But I was getting burned out at Uber. And Lime reached out to me. Do you remember Lime Bike Scooters?
Yeah.
So they reached out to me and they wanted someone to run the Chicago market and some other markets around Illinois. And I went through the whole interview process and they gave me an offer. It was actually a better offer than what I was making at Uber at the time. But something was very off when I was talking to them. It didn't feel right. Like they didn't have answers for certain questions and I had a feeling that the scooter craze was not going to be as hot as everyone said. And so
Yeah.
I decided not to move to Lime, even though I had the offer. I stayed at Uber, stuck with less money and the burnout. And then Lime actually went through massive layoffs. And I think they ended up laying off that role that I would have been in pretty soon thereafter.
And then what point was that with you in Uber? Was that because you stayed with Uber, but then you
Yep.
end up getting let go of Uber?
Yeah.
Was it years
Years
later?
later. Yeah. So
Uh,
that was when I'm at Uber Eats, right in the middle of when I was at Uber Eats.
When you say it didn't feel right, like what was
Yeah.
happening?
I don't remember the exact questions I was asking them, but it seemed like the people I talked to from there. So I talked to one of the co-founders. He seemed very busy and maybe too, I don't want to say too involved.
Mm.
He seemed like he potentially could have been bottlenecking things because he was so involved. And so he seemed almost like disinterested or like not as engaged in the interview process. Does that
Yeah.
make sense what I'm
Yeah.
saying? He was distracted, very busy. And then when I talked to other people, someone from HR took a very long time to get answers and tried to hand wave away some of the questions that I had. He gave me the politician's answer to one thing, which wasn't really an answer. It was just a bunch of words that meant nothing. And something is weird here. I don't think I'm going to like this.
That's good that you did that. Sometimes I feel my intuition saying, hey, maybe we should slow down here. I'm working with someone and like, let's do some clarifying questions with this person. And they give me what seems like a good answer, but it's kind of a BS answer. And I'm like, nah, just go with it. They did answer the questions. No, no, no. I didn't like really listen to the question. I just was trying to bypass it because I didn't want to say no to the person.
People will do this a lot where they'll give an answer that's not really an answer. There's nothing of substance in what they're saying, but it sounds good. And like you could accept that, but if it actually doesn't click, if you couldn't repeat back to them in other words what they said, I would not go with it.
Yeah, especially in that situation because you're dealing with. So I got a cousin who he's been raising money for a startup with dental insurance. And he is talking with people from LA. And I'm like, these are like the peak bullshitters that you're going to get.
Yeah.
So you're kind of dealing with the same thing, but almost in some ways even worse because they're trying to bring on a staff of people. But yeah, tell me about your next example.
Next example, I closed a client and immediately fired the client about a year ago because it was bad vibes.
So your client was paying you.
We didn't accept any money from them.
They were going to, and then you
They
said,
were going to, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But
So,
because when you say fired, I'm thinking like an employee where you're paying the employee, but you actually don't want your
yeah, I
money.
was like, I don't want your money. No, thank you. This team,
How much
like
money was it?
I don't know. It wasn't anything crazy. Like a small client. I guess this was maybe a year and a half ago.
I
We're
mean,
still growing. We're profitable.
when you're in growth phase, 50K, that's not a,
It's not nothing.
yeah, that's a big deal.
We were at the point where we were profitable, but we weren't comfortable if that with revenue. And so we saw this job posting. They needed data contractors, and we were like, oh, perfect. This is exactly what we do. We went through the interview process, and the founder of the company, he was very direct and to the point, and that was good. That's fine. We like it when people know what they want. And then he was like, all right, let's do this. So he signed our contract. And then on the kickoff call, he was like, we're actually doing something different than what we asked you to do, this like whole other thing. We need you to like check our own engineers' work, something very odd and something that we don't actually do as a company. Like we could, but it's just not in our offering. And he was very rude about it. And he was like, no, this is what you're going to do. And we're changing the terms of this. And I was just like, okay, let me get back to you. And called SMA. And we were just like, we're not doing this. So called the guy back and we were like, yeah, actually, this is no longer a good match. So we're going to part ways
Okay. This
to
was
not
with
take.
the Kalihi company, right?
Yeah. This is
Did you ever check back with them?
I don't think they ever finished what they were trying to do. I saw they had an Upwork profile and they have given very bad reviews to a couple of people on very short contracts.
Ah,
So I imagine they did the same thing to them.
yeah.
They would have left bad reviews for it. It would not have been worth $50,000. Probably would
They're,
have done $100,000 worth of work for
yeah.
50K.
And they're giving probably everyone bad reviews. It's probably impossible to get a good review with them. Now, the feeling that you had with that client versus with Lime? Was that a similar
Mhm.
feeling?
No, it was more like this client was changing the goalposts and trying to do it in a very quick, overconfident, directive way to see if we would go along with it or drag us along. Whereas Lyme was more like, I don't think they actually know the answers to these questions and something is off. There are things going on internally.
Yeah. Yeah. I see. I see. When you decided not to go with Lime, what kind of offer were they giving you?
I think it was double my salary that I was making at Uber.
Wow.
It was a lot of money to turn down at the time.
Were you at six
It's a big
figures with Uber?
on my base salary at Uber Eats at that time, no. With bonuses and things like that, yes. Lime was offering was much higher,
Okay, so Lime was doubling the base.
but right around that, it might have been a little bit less, maybe like 75% more, something like that. I don't
Okay.
remember the exact numbers, but I remember being like, "Oh man, this is a lot of
Yeah.
money."
Yeah.
I
Right.
right.
Okay. Give me number three.
So this is something I started doing because I had this intuition. Let me rephrase. I didn't listen to myself the first, second, or third time that this happened. Now I've started listening to myself here. And that is that I don't accept free work anymore. I don't accept offers of free help from people for my business.
Tell me
The
more
reason
about that.
so the reason being, so what we do is compelling to a lot of people. It makes them feel good, right? We find low income people in Brazil without college degrees or professional work experience. We pay them to learn in an apprenticeship for 6 months. Our goal is to 10x their incomes within 2 years, right? So we're trying to reduce poverty. And that
So,
feels good to people.
so when you say 10x, you're
Mhm.
like whatever job that they had before, you're going to 10x their salary by educating them and guiding them to proper clients.
Getting them into high wage careers in data analytics and analytics engineering. Um, and so because people that makes people feel good, a lot of people are like, "Let me help you do this. Let me be an intern or donate some of my time or blah blah blah." And this has happened multiple times. People are like, "Let me help you with sales or with your cold calling or whatever it may be." And a couple of times we've said, "Okay, we can do that."
Sounds
Um,
great. Why wouldn't
it
you
always
help
Oh,
accepting free labor?
it always turns out badly because people have great intentions, but if they're not getting paid for something they do professionally, it's the first thing that drops off and they wanna go to dinner with their friends or take a vacation or whatever it may be. Like, there's no incentive for them to help other than it feels good to them. Everyone ends up frustrated because the stuff they promised is not getting done, and they're like, "I'm helping you for free."
Yeah, that makes sense because now even on your end, you're afraid to ask because you're like, well, it is free. And you're like, but I
Exactly.
actually need this deadline. So in the
Like,
end, it's just
you're counted.
easier.
Yes.
It's easier
Yeah.
to like
If
pay
yeah.
something base at least and not have to deal with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we'll always pay now consulting rates or for a project or something like that. A week or 2 ago, someone at a dinner was like, "Oh, I wanna volunteer for your organization." And I was like, "We don't take volunteers." And she was like, "No, I wanna help you, and you can apply, and we can about that, but we don't do unpaid work."
Oh, that's good. I wonder if you could have a category of like, if you want to help, here's how you help. And usually when people do that, it's something super basic, like share a Facebook post, tell a
Yeah.
friend.
Mhm.
So they're like, I'm helping, and they kind of are helping. It may not really be a needle mover, but they kind of
Yeah,
feel like
this
they're
I should make a one pager and hand it to people when they're like, "Oh, let me help you."
5 ways to help. And
Yeah.
yeah, you guys have I've seen you guys do stuff on social media, but I don't think the core of getting clients is through social media.
Nobody is buying a $250,000 project from a Facebook post, typically, I'd say. I'm sure
Yeah,
it does happen sometimes. It's not
yeah,
how we get clients.
yeah. So, yeah, I guess this was a experience that you've had where it
Mhm.
just always turns out bad. Now,
Yep.
would you say that before your intuition was telling you not to do it, or do you have a
Yes.
okay, so it was you're always like, don't do this, and you're like, but it's free.
It's that thing where you're in a scarcity mindset and you're like, "We need these things and, like, we can use all the help we can get, and they're offering it for free." So it's almost like you're overriding what you know to be true
Mhm.
because you're hopeful that we should hoard all these free resources when we can get them.
Yeah, I love that because when people say, how do you listen to your intuition better? It's like if we're in a room or at a restaurant and the speakers are really loud, you can only talk so loud. It's hard for me to hear you.
Mm,
Do I get you to yell louder or do I just turn down the music?
yep.
So if I'm able to turn down the noise of the scarcity, to me, I think at times it's fun, other times it's not so fun. I've been seeing some stuff being back with my family. I just like hitting some buttons and route it back to the scarcity. And it's like, okay. I let this scarcity be there, let it speak rather than being at war with it. I've seen a lot of friends who I don't want to say are addicted to weed, but they're basically potheads because that's the only way they can quiet the anxiety. If they would just allow their anxiety to be there and let it speak. The thing is, with anxiety, anxiety never is a standalone emotion. There's always something underneath anxiety. You're afraid to lose your job, or you'll never make any money, or you'll be homeless, or maybe you won't get approval from your parents, or whatever it is. That creates the noise if we keep ignoring it, that we can't hear our intuition. So I love what you're saying
Agreed.
about the scarcity of, well, we could get some free labor.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it just puts you in a bad situation because
Yeah.
you've ignored what you know to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Did you have any of those situations when you were in Uber?
Any of the situations where
You
I felt
ignored.
scared. It typically, what happened there was I would defer to other people, like my
Mm,
manager. So, for instance, when we were pretty early on at UberWorks, I was trying to hire for a bunch of roles and I found someone who was just incredible. She still is. Like, she's this incredible, very hard worker, very smart, sharp as a whip. I interviewed her and I really wanted to hire her, but she was from Brazil. And it was going to cost us $50,000 to hire her for the visa,
yeah.
whatever that you had to do. And Uber does do this. Like, they brought people in from all over the country or all over the world to the United States to work. And so I told my boss at the time, I really want to hire her. I think she's going to be a great complement to the team. She's a hard worker. I think she's going to learn very fast. She was a little bit junior, but I knew she was going to learn super fast. She was just that type of mind where she had the motivation internally, the will, and she had the intelligence to do it. And he was like, no, it's going to take too long and it's going to be expensive and we need to just find someone else. And I didn't fight and I should have. I should have fought
Mm,
him on it, but I was a little too like, okay, he knows better than I do. I'll do what he wants. We didn't hire for that role for, I can't even tell you how long. We probably lost that much money in me making mistakes because I was overworked in that
yeah.
time. Then we would have, like, we should have just brought her in instead of waiting forever to find someone who was the right fit. But a year later, he was like, you know what? You were right. And we should have hired her. And I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. And I was like, vindicated, but it doesn't really feel good because I still passed out at this meeting for being overworked.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for I mean, yeah. Apologies is the least you could do. And it's great that you had a manager who was willing to apologize instead of
Yeah.
saying, well, if you would have found an American, we could have.
No, he's a good guy,
Yeah.
but I should have fought and I didn't.
Do you feel that, what we're talking about with the scarcities being this loud noise, do you think that was pushing you to burnout?
But I think scarcity was pushing me towards burnout, probably because insecurity and scarcity mindset kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
If
I
I,
mean,
what happens when they find out I'm not going to have this job anymore? I'm going to have to do something that's not going to provide for the type of life that I want.
right.
I'm sure that it is related.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not good enough. Then that's clearly this scarcity is me not being, view it as like, I'm actually viewing it as, have you played Settlers of Catan?
Yeah, all the time.
I love that game. But if you don't have enough wood, then you can't buy something, right? If I need 5 things of wood and there's only two, then that's not enough. It's just simply not enough. I actually think about it of like an internal scarcity versus an external scarcity. Like in that situation, that would be an external scarcity. But me not being enough is an internal scarcity. Where the thing is, if it was more of like a direct compatible like requirement, like, do you have directing skills to film the movie? No, I
Mm,
don't. So then
Right.
it's, we're really like you've been executing your role for different cities, different countries. So it's not about can you fulfill this job or do this role. It's more of an internal thing.
Totally.
So to wrap up with the last question, what would you tell yourself at the beginning of your professional journey about your intuition if you could talk to yourself then?
Don't let yourself be guilted or bullied into not listening to what you know is true by other people.
Yeah.
Because in many cases, when I haven't listened to my intuition, it's been because I've told myself, you don't know, and this other person knows, just listen to them. You should give them a chance. Like, just take a risk, like, let it happen. Even though I'm really like, I know this is not going to work out. If I just allowed myself to have some confidence in my
Mhm.
intuition, I would have made better decisions throughout my career.
Really trusting your intuition more than whatever that other person is saying.
Yes.
Love that.
What about you?
I would say I love what you're saying about that because I feel that your intuition is almost like a relationship and your intuition is with you 24/7. So I see a lot of people, like, let's say a therapist, someone is feeling something, but they're asking their therapist, best friend, coworker, or boss, like what to do, where your intuition has already told you what to do. Quit the job, don't take the job, break
Mhm.
up with that person, whatever it is. It's like if I was in your hometown, I said, hey, what's the best place for dinner? And you told me, and I went to a stranger and said, hey, what's the best place for dinner in this town? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Over here. Yeah. Hey, Janice, let's go over here. You'd be like, I just told you what it was. And we do that all the time with the intuition. So yeah, I think that's beautiful of the idea of just have trust in the intuition. And I think trust is a key element in confidence. It's like action plus trust is confidence. I feel like a lot of times I was really operating from courage, and it was courage to me is like action plus fear. If you just switch the fear with the trust, it's, you know, I mean, and I'm sure with the way you're hiring people or how you were going for jobs, whether you're hiring people in Uber or in your own business, you've probably seen people who are operating out of courage and operating out of confidence. And it's very clear, like the confident person, they're just going to be like, look, this is what I can do. This is me. I'm not going to over compromise and, tell you, well, maybe I can. Like everything's more clear because if you don't hire them, they're confident that they're going to get another job. But if you're living with the fear, it can be terrifying. Is there going to be another job like this? You know?
Totally.
Thanks, Denise. This was fun.
I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Please share this with a friend, like and subscribe. And if you want to learn more about how to hear your intuition more clearly, check out this video right here where I show you 3 questions you can ask yourself to identify the difference between intuition and anxiety.